Welcome to the Conscious Combat Club, trauma-informed martial arts by women, for women. I'm your host Georgia, and I cannot wait to go on this journey with you. Please note that some listeners might find this content distressing. Take care, connect with your support networks, and refer to the organisations in the show notes below. Welcome back, everyone. It has been a minute since we released a podcast episode, largely due to all of the work that we've been doing in setting up our dedicated trauma-informed martial arts studio. So if you want to hear about the updates from that, head on over to our Instagram page. But today we have an episode for you. I am joined by Erik Jumelet-Boom, who is the founder of Trap Kickboxing from the Netherlands, which is a therapeutic kickboxing program. So this conversation is incredibly technical yet practical. I'm really proud of the way that we were able to dig into some tangible examples for you all in what is a really wonderful program with a lot of thought into various aspects of trauma-informed practice and therapeutic practice, in particular through the lens of psychomotor therapy. So for practitioners of trauma-informed martial arts, I think you're going to take a lot away from this conversation. And so I look forward to hearing what you think and if you want us to do a part 2. Erik, I am so excited for this conversation, least because I feel like you are providing a bridge between the research world in the Netherlands and what we can access in the English-speaking world. So thank you so much for doing this interview with me in English, first and foremost. I want to jump straight into talking about the TRAP program. Can you start with a bit of an overview about what TRAP stands for, what the program involves?
Sure, that's no problem. With starting the fact that since I'm doing more and more international focus, I'm really working on a new name. Something we discussed in the previous time, that in Dutch it's a clever acronym, but in English TRAP is an awful name for working trauma sensitive. So many people having trouble with trusting others. A lot of women have a lot of difficulty with working with me one-on-one just because I'm a man. And then the name of my program is TRAP, like triggering all kind of distrust issues. But in Dutch, trap, the Dutch word of trap has the same meaning as a kick, and since the roots are in kickbox therapy, the name trap in Dutch, trap, makes more sense. The T stands for trauma sensitive. The R stands for regulation, one of the important pillars of the method. The A stands for assertiveness in both directions. The sub-assertiveness to standing your ground and practicing with getting the conflict, and the aggressive parts, trying to stay in connection with yourself and the other. And then the P for psychomotor therapy, because that's the root, the foundation of which the martial arts element is added.
So is it a therapeutic program or is it an adjunct to therapy?
I would say the latter, because the roots are in the psychomotor therapy, and a lot of the themes that we work with, a lot of the groups that we work with are all having its roots in that psychomotor therapy. And we work with all kind of means. There are colleagues of mine that love to work with a football. There are colleagues of me that like to dance and use expression and that bodily focus for grow and recovery. And I happen to love the martial arts, so that's one of the things that I love to do more. So I would say it's an addition to the already amazing foundation of the psychomotor therapy.
And what is psychomotor therapy for those who don't know?
Well, the shortest version, a tad simplified, is that we're a crossover between a psychologist and a PA teacher. So we work with the same themes as a psychologist. As a matter of fact, we work together a lot. There are a lot of people that we see in the same periods complementing each other. But we're standing in a setting where you can have all kind of experiences. And we use that so that people have the chance to learn by doing instead of just talking. Um, and to be a bit more precise, I found a quote of one of my colleagues that does a lot of research in PMT and trauma. And she wrote it as through the use of movement based activities and a focus on bodily experiences, mental health is promoted and psychosocial development is functioning are enhanced. The concrete bodily experience form the foundation for changes in behavior, cognition, and emotions. Psychomotor therapy, based on phenomenological and embodiment theories, operates from the perspective of the body we are, rather than the body we have. Experiencing the world and the self is rooted in experiencing the body. PMT adopts a relational view to the human body and movement, and humans are seen as embodied, acting beings in an effective motor relationship with their environment. Coming partly from Goethe, 2016. So that's the big version of.
All right, let's take that and explain that theory. So that definition, imagine you had to explain that definition to a 5-year-old. What would you say?
Then I probably fall back on the PA teacher metaphor.
And BA
We're doing
is
all kind of exercise. Sorry?
BA teacher or PA, physical activity teacher.
Yeah.
So like a personal trainer?
No, like the gym teacher in high school.
High school gym teachers, okay. I think
So like we're a crossover between a psychologist and a gym teacher. That's what we like to do.
right, and if I've understood the definition correctly, it is the idea that change needs to be based in the body in order to become a part of somebody's new self that they're trying to step into, and that physical experiences is what leads to change in the body and therefore change in the mind. Is that basically on the right track?
Yeah, that's one of the methods how it works. So to make a concrete example, when somebody is looking for help and they have a lot of anxiety, in psychology you're being laid down on the Freud sofa and you talk about it. You get, for example, you got the cognitive behavior therapy, becoming more aware of your thoughts, trying to find helpful thoughts to counteract, finding a strategy for the next situation that is scary outside later that week. And we do an exercise that actually creates anxiety in that very moment, and in the here and now we're starting to work with that. So one, where is that anxiety? Where can you feel that in your body? What kind of sensations do you feel? What kind of things can you do to endure that, to accept that? And it's much more learning by doing, and doing an exercise and having that success experience, like, hey, I got this bit of anxiety, but instead of going left like I always do, now I'm practicing with Erik to go to the right. And what does that bring me?
So kickboxing, the kickboxing example of that, how would you do that in a class? Would it be that you invite people to do like partnered games and feel their adrenaline increase in response to that? What would be an example of how it looks like in a class?
As in a normal class working on prevention, or a little group of people in therapy?
Therapy.
Well, in therapy, I use the gloves at first more foremost as a mirror, as to make the people aware of their behavior, aware of their arousal. So what I like to do, one of the things that I give people a pair of gloves, let them stand in front of each other, let them go inside of the mode. But long before we even have a first punch or a first exercise, I'm already stopping people and making them aware of, hey, what does this context do? Because the moment they put on gloves, the moment they stand in front of each other, there's so much going on already. And especially working with trauma, I even try to avoid standing in close contact in the beginning, because that can be overwhelming at the basis even. So it's much more of, hey, what is happening right now? I see that your breathing is changing. I see that your shoulders are almost against your ears right now. I see that color is draining out of your face. Just making them aware of, hey, what is happening right now? What is that anticipation? What kind of prejudice do you have about the sport? What kind of prejudice do you have with the person in front of you? What kind of person do you think he is, and what does that do with your arousal?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just jumping into the deep and just go ahead, in therapy, a lot of people, some even when they have experienced trauma, for example, they can see a pair of gloves and are already that can be enough to go in full survival mode. And from there on, you cannot learn, and from there on, you cannot feel safe. So there's a lot I do beforehand, and it's all about that. Using the body, stay in contact with yourself, and as soon as that is possible, working with the how can we connect together and how can we do this game together. And then the part of regulation in action starts, but most of the things are beforehand.
Yes, I realized we kind of jumped right ahead before talking about the trauma sensitive foundations of a trauma informed program. Although it is hard to create, I think, like a sequential thing, right? Because everything is kind of happening at the same time. But let's zoom out and let's go back to that, because everybody has a different definition, I think, of what trauma sensitive means. So when you're explaining to somebody about what makes this program trauma sensitive compared to a typical kickboxing space or another space, what makes it trauma sensitive?
Well, it starts by the fact that there's a lot of personal attention and that it's always tailor-made. As soon as I have 10 groups, even if I work with the same program, I have 10 completely different outcomes at the end of the line, since it's so much, hey, who are you, what do you like, and we're going to do this at your pace.
Yep.
One of the challenges I found in kickboxing as a sport is there is a lot of group pressure. There's a lot of things going on where you have this little context where you don't want to lose from the other. For example, the context where a teacher or a trainer counts, and with every count you have to do a combination. You know, like one, and everybody makes the combination. Two, there's so much pressure in that because you need to be on the same level. As a matter of fact, if you're a bit slower, you can really hear it because you got the main drum and you got you being a little bit slower, which can be awful. And the moment you punch less hard, it's also very obvious. You keep on hearing your neighbors and your sound starts to diminish. So elements like that are really helpful if you need a bit of discipline, if you're a bit I don't know, lazy and you could use a little kick behind your back. And that a lot of trainers work with that philosophy. You know, it's good for discipline, it's good to, but working with trauma, it's so easy to push people over their boundaries and to make it so hard to actually communicate your boundaries in a context like that. So the sport itself has a lot of elements that are really not trauma sensitive. So I work with gloves, but at the end it can look completely different than a sport lesson.
Yeah, I mean, I look at everything through the lens of how we run our programs, of course, that's my bias. So, you know, it always makes me feel so happy when I meet another practitioner who talks about trauma-sensitive practice with choice being at the center, because it's not always there, and it must be there. It is like the quintessential thing in common of true trauma-sensitive programs, I think. Talk us through the R again. Remind everyone the R stood for.
The R stands for regulation.
How does that look like in class?
Well, like I said, the moment the arousal is getting too high, I don't know. Were there previous recording where you talked about the window of tolerance? Is that a common thing, or should I explain that a little bit?
Explanation, just in case people are jumping straight into this episode.
We like to work with the window of tolerance, where there's a certain window in which your arousal can rise and fall back again, and that's like the normal stress we have all day long. For example, the moment you're in a car, your arousal starts to rise a little bit because you need to be sharp on the road, which is not like life and death stress, but it is a bit of arousal. And the moment you are, we call it outside of your window, when the arousal is too high, you go into a survival mode. And then you have the fight, freeze, and flight responses in the classical form. And recently they're more talking about, what were the other two?
The fawn response?
please, yeah, exactly, and fun.
Yeah.
So what we like to do is to create a setting which is safe enough that people are not in the survival mode, and as soon as people are in the green zone, as soon as they're in the part where we want them to be, they're able to look inside. And regulation is about staying in contact with yourself, noticing the sensations your body has to tell you, and staying in contact with yourself, as in being sharp with your desires and your boundaries. What do I really want, and what do I not want? And within that connection, being able to connect with the other as well, and that requires all sorts of regulation, all sorts of themes that we like to work with.
What would be an example of a regulation technique that you would use? So I'm imagining you use things like, focusing on breathing or body scans to regulate the nervous system to bring it back down, but does it look like something else? That's just my assumption.
Well, that could be that isn't a great example. One thing that I like to do is to make people, as soon as the foundation is there, I'm talking about part 2 already of the method, working in a pyramid, trying to give 10 punches and increase your power with every punch, for example. Or most of the time we start with step 1 until 10, and we say today we're practicing with 1 until 5, which is mostly hard enough, and outside of the comfort zone for a lot of people. And then it starts with the regulation, just in basic sense. Are you able to punch harder or lower on a command, or on a personal will? Experience that you can express yourself and stay in contact. There are a lot of people that have anxiety for expressing themselves. What if I get aggressive? What if a guy gums all red, and I do all sort of things that I regret later on? Just getting that trust, like, hey, that punch of number 5, that was a serious punch, but look at it, look at you, you're still able to go back to 4-3-2. So getting some trust in the fact that you're actually able to regulate on that sense.
Yes.
And combine it with, for example, the things that you like to work with, the pound and ground. Then after working, see if you're able to calm yourself a bit down. Yep. You punched that 5, and that gave you a form of arousal. Are we able together? And later on, are you able with yourself to calm yourself down again?
It's so interesting, isn't it, how many people come into the space really nervous about not being able to control their power, and then the flip of that, how actually empowering it is to be able to hit more softly. Like, for some people it is the big hit that is their huge moment, but for other people to have both the bodily awareness to maintain control of power, because all martial artists listening will know that, the white belt is the last person that you want to train with, because they have no control. And if you're training to have a fight soon and you're worried about getting injured, you're better off going with a black belt than a white belt, because we've yet to learn self-control. So it's not an uncommon thing across the board in general population, but there is something that is even more difficult for trauma survivors who have a disconnection in their body. They have a lack of interoception, which we haven't spoken about yet today. They struggle sensing themselves, so they don't know, am I hitting hard? Was that a 5? How do I know? I've had this question so many times, Georgia, how do I know what a 7 out of 10 is? What does that even mean?
Yeah. And as soon as I work a lot with people that have aggression problems, I love to keep on working with the numbers, because the numbers make it more complex, and that's something I really want, because I want to do all kind of things that make it more complex, so they need to think a lot in order to do my exercise well. But working with trauma, I work a lot with people that experience early childhood trauma and like complex trauma. A lot of people who have suffered through sexual violence. And there's not a lot of aggression in that group. It's more the other way around, more the sub-assertiveness. They learn to avoid a lot of things. I work with a lot of women that make it an art of avoiding every man in their life, just dance around it, so they have as least confrontations as possible. And in that kind of situations, I try to get away from things like counting with the numbers, because that creates an extra level of, oh, am I doing this right? Then it's much more like, hey, we're gonna look for a level that you feel comfortable with. We start off nice and easy, and if you are ready and if you are willing, if you want to, there's no obligation for me. If you want to, you can push a little higher. Oh, and then give some feedback. Oh, for me this feels like, and then a bit later on, the tension rises a bit. If you give them some time, it can lower again. And if you feel like they can carry it, then I have the same invitation. Like, hey, you're doing already great. If this is it, this is perfectly fine. If you want to, if you feel like it, you can go a little higher. And then a little higher is vague. Is just to make sure that it goes on their pace and on their in their way. That you can do it as high as that you'd like. And when you're good, then the exercise is over.
Yeah. Yes. And that's really where all of those elements blend in towards each other, right? That comes back to what we're talking about with trauma sensitive, bringing choice into the practice and making sure people have agency. So we've got a session and we're centering people's autonomy, their choice. We're building in skills for them to stay inside of their window of tolerance. We're helping them have experiences through their bodily experiences of power, or rewriting their story in some other way, and their sense of their body. Remind everybody again what the A stands for and what that brings into the space.
The A stands for assertiveness. No, wait, 1 second. Before we continue, the interoceptive awareness is one part, but together with that, something that we love to combine, or that we find important to combine, is that as soon as you experience situations where people cross your boundaries and didn't take your boundaries seriously, it can also do a lot with the way that you experience your body, or that you evaluate your body, the relationship you have with your body. And as soon as you're really negative about that, and you feel like, oh, my body isn't able to do anything, and you're very critical, then the relationship you have with your body does a lot with the confrontation as well, because in a martial art context, you're standing in front of each other, you have this physical confrontation, so you have to use your body to attack, to make a stage, to be there, and the other way around, the opponent, the other person, can do something with your body. So the relationship with your body really have a lot of effect on the context as well. So that's something we're focusing on as well, right from the very start. Like, how is this for you to getting closer and closer to a person, or the other way around? You stay at the same point, you let somebody else come to you instead of you coming to the. Is that experience different, and how is that different? And change the person, change the male into a female, or change a small person in a big person. Let's do it again. How does that feel? So that's also an important step beforehand, and that's way before we go to the A of assertiveness. Well, in a way, we begin it since they already get a lot of room to say what they want, or to get this being heard and being respected. As soon as somebody say, hey, this is a bit too close, we immediately stop and take the boundary serious. But going to the A of assertiveness, in action, has a lot to do with arousal regulation. So coming back to that window of tolerance, it's a practice of, can we widen your window, the things that you can endure today, can that become a bit more next week? Is it possible to do a confrontation and grow with the confidence of staying in contact and staying in contact with the other as well in a confrontation? And then it's for the people that are sub assertive, it's the practice of, can we go higher and higher? If we started with 1 until 4, try to reach that up. Can we bring that to 6 to 7, and trying to practice with the grounding, the standing your ground, not walking away, really the assertiveness. So from sub-assertiveness to assertiveness, and the other way around for people that are aggressive, going back to that same middle ground. Can you stay in contact with? Can you express yourself without losing yourself? Can you still respect me and take me into account if you got the chance to push higher and higher. So that's all that's all working with the window of tolerance.
It it reminds me actually a bit of the bubble game that they play in equine assisted therapy. I don't know if you've seen much of this, but there's a facilitator and the client, and they stand maybe 20 meters or 30 meters or something like that apart, and the facilitator will slowly walk towards the client until they say, like, stop, this is where my bubble, so where my personal space boundary wants to be. And the presence of the horse, just to go off on a whole tangent, is essentially that horses are super sensitive to energy changes. So they're very perceptive to a change in your emotional state. And so sometimes the horse will react, and it can cause pause for you to wonder, oh, am I actually not as comfortable here as I was thinking? Have I just been kind of ignoring what my body was saying just because I needed to? Certainly that was the case when I tried it, because I'm a martial artist for nearly 20 years, so I would assume I have no issues with personal space. Everyone can come as close to me as they want because I'm so used to it. But it did a little bit surprise me to spend some time seeing what that actually felt like. And I think, I mean, in terms of practicing combat sports, if we zoom further out and think about as a whole, like what could typical spaces learn from programs like the TRAP program, is around how assertive are you being right now, and how assertive is the other person being right now, and are we both actually comfortable with that? Because I think overwhelmingly the majority of times in sparring or training, one person is more comfortable than the other person. One person is kind of at the pace that they really like, and the other person is very, very far away.
Having to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. So it always gives me pause for, of course, this is it's an adjunct, but it's very on the spectrum of things. I think this is much closer to the end of a therapeutic program, and that's certainly not the expectation for your typical martial arts space. But what can we learn from spaces like yours? So after having worked with so many people impacted by trauma, is there anything that you wish you could put on a billboard or somehow get in front of all martial arts coaches to say, like, here are some of the very basic small changes that I think would make a real difference in reducing re-traumatization and improving accessibility for the trauma survivors that are in your class? Because that is absolutely guaranteed, is if you're coaching martial arts, you are working with trauma survivors.
Well, the first thing I would do is to put an emphasis on the fact that there's so much to win, especially on the sub-assertive persons, to the avoiders, where a lot of martial arts artists, trainers think it's so much more for the people that need to regulate their aggression. So I would like to start off with, hey, find yourself a new target group, one, and two, that group requires a 180 in your approach. So don't do the same trick. You need really to do something else. And what I keep on finding fascinating is that there's so much to learn. There's so much value in growth in your own success experiences. You can be in front of somebody and tell them 100 times, I think you can more than you think. I think you're able to do so much more, but the moment somebody actually does something more and it sees it happening, that's the moment where it clicks and it really internalizes, like, oh my god, this is what I am capable of. There are a lot of therapeutic sessions. Sometimes I was working with people for close to a year, and at the end of the line, I didn't give one punch back. I was just a living punching bag, doing all sort of things in just receiving, since for their question, it wasn't really necessary that I did anything back. And they had, for example, what I love to do is to get this big kicking cushion,
Kicking back.
put it on my stomach, and letting people do a push with their feet. It's like in between a kick and a push. It doesn't require a lot of technique. It's not that complicated. It feels quite natural. But the moment you got, for example, fear for men, or there are women that have difficulty with me being a bit taller than them, uh, and then being able to see that they can push me around, they can push me back for meters and meters as soon as they put their energy in it. And just seeing me falling backwards is such a powerful thing. So sometimes for me, even if I try to find all my therapeutic knowledge and I'm doing everything I can to make something happen, most of the the things they like is just seeing me as a living punching bag, seeing me flying back, because that's the moment where they're like, hey, I really am stronger than I think, and in a confrontation this is what I can be able of.
Yes, confidence is experiential. I don't know how many times I say it is over and over again. There's no amount of affirmations in the mirror that will beat the little voice in your head that says the opposite of whatever affirmation you're trying to use if you don't back it up with action that supports that new frame of mind that you're trying to have, whether that is I'm confident, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm capable of pushing people back, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and working with trauma, when you think about, for example, EMDR, there are a lot of methods that working on reducing the amount of burden you have. But I think one of the powers of martial arts is that you can empower people and make them stronger. And I think the combination is very powerful. So if you've got these strong triggers or all these nightmares, it can be wonderful to have all kind of things that can get the load off.
Mm-hmm.
But I think using martial arts in a therapy is the other way around, making you stronger and giving you that confidence. So the next time you have a trigger or you have a situation that gives anxiety, it's less of a threat. It's easier to endure and to stay in contact since you feel so much stronger.
Yes, 1000%. So what's the balance? Are you mostly working with people one-on-one? Are they group classes? Is it 50-50?
Um, I'm always looking at a person. What are your desires? What do you need? I also always do this in collaboration. What do you like? What do you prefer? Sometimes when I have the different preference, I try to get the discussion going. But in the end, I want them to make the decision, because one on one, for most people, it's the most safe, and there's the most personal attention, which can be really necessary in the beginning. On the other hand, as soon as people have the capacity to be in a small group. Sometimes a group can be as small as three for me, because I have one person I'm working with, and in the corner of my eyes I always see the other two. So I always have 100% of the people within my eyesight. So sometimes when I'm talking about groups, I'm talking about three persons.
Yeah.
But I find a lot of value in the groups, since it can normalize so much. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension, that is perfectly normal, which is perfectly human. The fact that we're standing if somebody is new to martial arts, you give them gloves, you're standing across to each other, everybody reacts. Everybody has a certain discomfort. Everybody has a bit of arousal.
Yeah.
So the moment I love to make a little group of people that have a comparable questions, comparable goals they want to achieve. So
Yeah.
one to normalize the moment you have tension and you hear the other two persons saying exactly the same. It's like, oh man, since isolation and feeling lonely is at the core of a lot of people with trauma, so that can be really healing, the power of the group. And what I find really interesting is that when you talk about the assertiveness, to express yourself, to push yourself, to being out there, uh, it's so hard for them. But as soon as you ask the others to encourage the other, then that voice that's so much easier to get. It's funny how strong they can react in motivating the other person, and that does so much with a group and with your confidence, since we're social creatures. So that's something that I really love about groups.
Amazing. I know you don't have a typical class, so I'm not going to ask you to try to describe one, but would you be able to describe a class? Of course, don't tell us anything about the clients or anything confidential, but like as an example, could you describe what a class looks like from start to finish?
Um, ooh, yeah, my classes went went all sorts of directions. There's not one specific. I never ended at the same note. Where sometimes I stayed completely away from sparring, and with other groups I was like, oh, this can be safe and this can be valuable, so let's try that. Um, but the main line that I'm working with is that feeling of a group, trying to make it safe, trying to make it feel like they're a group of friends working together on a project. We're doing this together. We are growing instead of I am doing this. Um, and then a huge part is that success experience. A huge part is experiencing growth, making the group so long that at the end your stamina has improved, your power has improved, that you also feel that kind of positive effects. Um, yeah, I think that's the core, and from there on we work more like themes that are coming up spontaneously. Well, the main thing is, since it's so tailor made, I never had one class that was the same as the other. I always end up with different end goals, and during the class, there are all sort of themes that come up, which makes me feel like getting a sidetrack to put some accents on other things that come up. But the main thing I love to work with is that cohesion, making it safe for everybody, and creating that vibe of we're a group of friends. Uh, Working on a goal together. We are traveling together, exploring this new area as a group. We're going on this adventure, and not you have your goals that you have to work with. Um, and that a main ingredient is that building confidence, having all these success experiences, um, finding safety in confrontations. And what I love to do in a group is that there's a certain safety that is in the interaction. Somebody across you looks really nice, looks really adorable, so I feel safe. But if you do that with 3 or 4 persons, you start to see a red line of your own, the things that you bring in, your own confidence, and the fact that they can grow. And from there on, it's all about that building, making the group long enough that they become stronger, that their stamina is improving, that their technique is improving, so that they actually feel and hear like, hey, I'm so much stronger than I was in the beginning. And for some, it feels safe enough that they really want to work directly on the trauma. A lot of things that we talked about right now is working indirectly with trauma, working with the effects that trauma has, and the things that the way that trauma shaped you, and working with that themes. And some groups really want to directly work with a form of trauma therapy. So that's more than just trauma sensitive kickboxing. That's actually trauma therapy. So there are groups that I'm working with that as well, but that really depends on the group and the safety of the group.
Can you make it more tangible? So if I am listening to this podcast and I'm trying to picture what actually happens in a class, like what kind of warm-up do you do? What kind of prompts would you have? You have a conversation? Do you not have conversation? And then what do you practice? Technique? Do you do combinations? Like what would be, again, just one example of how a class might run from start to finish?
Like the first lesson from start to finish, or the entire trajectory from start to finish?
The first lesson from start to finish.
The first session. Well, um, at the very beginning, nobody wears gloves. We start sitting down, and it's more getting acquaintance, sharing the things that you'd like to share, the things that you find important, sharing the things that you like to work on if you want to. And to create a safe space, then one of the first things I'd like to do is to create settings that people find the space to feel safe. And a lot of times, I love to work one on one with a person 2 or 3 sessions before we go into the group. So I got a lot of preparation that I can do one on one, and a lot of safety I already built in. But one of the first things that we like to do is to create a setting together. I'm not making the rules, we are making the rules. What do you guys need to get out of your comfort zone, to try something new. And for some people, that means like, I want a separate space. I want a place where we sit down and where we make the rule that no exercise is going on in that corner. So that is like the safe space. And then in the other side of the corner where the gloves are, that's where the action is. And just looking for what are the things that we need. Like actually, as I love to make this huge flip over, creating rules together. What are the rules that we need to keep this safe for each other? And one of the first exercises I do is I try to stay away from the personal confrontation in the very beginning. So I used to work with the big kicking bags. They're just hanging at the ceiling. Starting with the technique, explaining like, hey, I want to explain a few things to keep this safe in terms of injury, for example. Just so this is not an exercise. This is just a way to make this to do no harm to yourself. But obviously, a lot of things already happening right now, right there. So it's starting off by the techniques, but from that very point on, I try to make it less scary. For example, by making some jokes or creating that session, creating that emphasis on it's not about the result. It's not about you're not getting a diploma at the end. You're not getting a grade. Just look for a way that you like. So a major thing is in the very beginning is putting that sense of we're doing that in your tone. We're doing it at your pace, and we're gonna create a foundation. And from there on, we start that. And that creates a lot of safety, like, oh, we're not even started yet, this is just a finding out. But obviously that's a huge part of the therapy. But just saying that out loud, we're just looking for a foundation to start later on. Give a lot of people peace of mind to experiment.
And then what kind of things would you experiment with? Would you offer like a combination? Do they work then like combinations on the bags? At that point, are they doing like kickboxing? But then are there moments where you'll pause and like teachable moments where you'll say like, we noticed this, and then like have a conversation around it? Or do you let people mostly arrive at those experiences themselves, or would you call it out?
Well, I love to call it out. I love to be the mirror. I try to be the sensitive horse, being that mirror, communicating of the things that I think that I see. I think I see this and this happening. I see that your face, you're getting a more of a frowned expression. Do you recognize that? Do you think that is happening, for example? So starting off by people making aware of what does the context do to you, making sure that it's in a tone that everything is perfectly fine. There's no good or wrong, but just what are you experiencing? And the moment it feels safe enough, they express that, or I feel that, then I work with, for example, trying to build up a bit of power. Like, oh, your technique looks perfectly fine. If you want to, you can try it a bit harder. If they like it, I give them the free invitation of, would you like to try the same thing, but then against me or against one of the other persons? And if so, you can choose the one that you prefer. And the very beginning is all about making them aware of what is going on right now. What does the sport do to you? What does the social context do to you? And how can we work with that? So the moment I see that the arousal is getting too much, I try to pause it. In the beginning, I'm working a lot with co-regulation. Like, hey, maybe we should take a little break, or you guys need a little drink. But in the beginning, there's a great emphasis on techniques and just the first experience. What does this do to you? What are the things that you like? What are the things you don't like? And how's the sport for you?
How would you?
Is that tangible enough, or would you like to?
I like it. It's good. We're getting very practical. I know that people really want to have a lot of examples for how things can work, and I think that's one of the really important parts about hosting a podcast, is to try to bridge like the academic world, which can be very like theoretical and not as like tangible, with like, okay, and so what, what actually happens. So this is, I think, a super valuable conversation. So I'm thinking about what I can picture as well too in a class, and how detailed now that image is starting to become, particularly the initial setting, creating team rules, creating the starting to bond the community, introductions to each other, moving towards safety protocols, learning how to do some basic techniques, slowly dialing up the power, and then having options for moving from bags to working with people. And then once we come towards the end of the class, is there a reflection process, or what do you like to do at the end of a first session to wrap the class up?
Well, since there were so many mini moments of reflections, there's not a lot of necessity for a huge reflection at the end. I do it in a little while, um, but again, it's working with the group. How do you guys find it? If we see each other next week, did you find a certain curiosity? Is there something you'd like to do next week, for example? Is there something you'd like to change now that you experience it? For example, I love to go back to the board again. These are the rules we did in front, but maybe while working, we want to add a rule. Maybe we want to change a rule. Maybe we want to delete a rule. And I love to end with some relaxation exercises, since for most people it's so new that the session itself is arousal as it is. So for the entire hour, the arousal can be a bit above average anyway, no matter how safe you're trying to make it. I like to look for some calming exercises so that I know that they're going out of the door in a relaxed sense, and not with all this build up tension and getting home and getting deregulated back home when they're all by themselves,
Yes. What would be one example of a relaxation exercise you would do?
The lame answer, which is not tangible enough, is that it's very personal. So with every group it changes, it's differently. But one of the main things I like to do is to calm the exercises down, slowing down the exercises, since you're doing so it's more in line with, instead of the boxing bag is action and relaxation is a laying down meditation. Finding the relaxation in the boxing bag by just slowing down, trying to ease your breath, trying to catch your breath while just still being in relaxed action. For example, a lot of times with the gloves off, so the power decreases automatically since it's starting to hurt if you do it too loud. I'm a big fan of Tai Chi, since it got a lot of martial arts, how do you say it? Martial arts techniques, but the focus is completely different. The focus is inward, in line with your breath. And there are a lot of people that finding breathing exercises difficult, that feel that like their breath is getting too forced and too unnatural as soon as they focus on it. But as soon as you say, hey, try to make the pace of your movement in line with your breath, breathing in, pushing out, breathing out, coming in again, for example, that is easier for a lot. Not for everybody, but that feels like an entrance for me. And I like the body oriented version. So for example, I end with a few of yoga exercises, for example, a few stretches that have a lot of effect in your body. That's for example, the down dog, that does so much stretch on the backside of your leg, on your hamstrings. Some exercise that does so much that the body is giving so much signals to the body that the thinking calms down automatically, like in line with the Jacobson method, for example. Working with your body to calm it down.
Amazing. Very good, tangible examples. Thank you. I appreciate you humouring me. We are very nearly out of time. As I mentioned before when we were chatting, there's very possibly a part 2 or part 3 podcast that could come so that we can go deeper into some aspects of these topics. But in the context of the conversation that we've had so far, is there anything that you want to touch on that the audience hasn't got to hear yet that you think is relevant to what we've been speaking about so far, or even peripherally?
Well, a very concrete advice I'd like to give to people is be aware that there's a huge difference in the quality of different martial arts schools. There are a lot of styles, but I even recommend my clients when they're done and they have so much success experience that they feel like, oh, I want martial arts in my life now. I want to continue this path. One of the main advices is don't even focus too much on the style. Don't necessarily go to kickboxing or go to judo, but try some things in the region with the main focus on the trainers. What kind of persons are they? What are their styles? And become very aware of that peer pressure. There's a lot of elements in the martial arts that are really not trauma sensitive. So the power comes from the quality of the trainer. So see if you can walk inside. You don't even have to participate. You can just watch a group, and if you want to, you can take a lesson. But try at least 4 or 5 things before making a choice, because then you can experience the huge difference that it makes. And it's the trainer at the end of the line that does the magic, that helps you or not.
Yeah, that is very, very great advice. Certainly mirrored in a lot of the conversations that I've had at this point in time. Is there's no best martial art for trauma survivors or anyone. It so much comes down to who is teaching it and the community that is there and the culture that they've developed at that particular gym or school or whatever language that you might use. For people who want to get in touch with you, or if they want to learn more about your work, can they do so? Is there much readily available in English? Where do people find the information?
Right now I have a website, trapkickboxer.nl. I will put it in the description below. There are a lot of browsers that do automatic translations right now. It is in Dutch, but a lot of browsers give you automatically the English version of it.
I did that. It works.
Exactly. Right now I'm doing most of my updates on LinkedIn, so feel free to look me up on LinkedIn and follow me over there. And I still have the desire to make an English YouTube channel, but that's future thinking. That's not concrete yet. But as soon as that arrives, I'll make sure that I send you a mail. You can put it in the show notes. So if you're listening to this later on, look for the show notes. There might be a link to a YouTube at a certain point in time.
Amazing. What a good hook people through, to be confirmed. And I'm sure you'll be able to get the update as soon as the YouTube channel launches, since now you've set it to our community. Now that's your accountability. Now you have to do it.
Exactly.
I'm sure people. Yeah.
Feel free to remind me as soon as you do not find it in the show notes. Just send me a mail. Erik, I heard a promise.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Where is the YouTube channel? The people on LinkedIn want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep me reminded of it, because it's a dream for a long time, and it really should become concrete right now.
That's life. Such is the life. It's always going through seasons, and I know you're working on a lot of other amazing projects in education and research. So I will say to our community, without giving as much away or making as grand sweeping promises as Erik's done just here, to watch this space, but much more broadly, just in general. There's a lot of fantastic work that's coming out of the work that you're doing and at the university and separately. So it's a very, I think, promising time for trauma-informed kickboxing broadly.
Yeah, and there's one huge wish I have. There's one huge step on the horizon that I'm working on, which getting really concrete. I have the focus of this January of 2026. That there is a full year education for therapists. So therapists that want to work with martial arts but are new to the martial arts itself. So they're great psychomotor therapists, but they do not work with gloves enough. So a full year of getting them better with the gloves so they can get more quality. And at the same time, I'm working on a Trainer Plus, an education, especially for people already having their degrees in being a certified trainer, having the experience in being a good trainer, and they want to learn more about mental health and, for example, trauma-sensitive approach, while still staying a trainer, not becoming a therapist. And my dream is that the two find each other, start to collaborate with each other, and working on the line of prevention and lifestyle, where a lot of mental health care, at least in Holland, a lot of mental health care is actually way too late. Instead of working on prevention and lifestyle, we see people are sick for years before they actually find the right help.
A worldwide problem, I think.
Yeah, and my wish is that the Trainer Plus and the psychomotor therapy with experience find each other and really work on the field of prevention and lifestyle, which, martial arts in its very core is working on lifestyle and prevention. So that's my big wish. And in making that Trainer Plus courses, there's a lot of information that I collect and write down that is perfectly fine, for example, for a YouTube channel. So there's a lot of content created anyway, making the wish more realistic right now.
Yeah, you're digging your own grave, I think. The YouTube channel obviously has no choice but to manifest. Everybody can expect to see that very soon. I'm very excited for all the courses and the content that you're putting out to the world. I think if your vision comes true, the world will be a better place and everyone will be far better off. So, of course, I'm cheering for that as well. And I'll put all the information that we've mentioned into the show notes here. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment if there is anything in particular that you want us to go deeper into in a part 2. Otherwise, I will take the artistic license to deep dive into whatever I want to. But please do let us know if there's anything you want us to follow up on more, and thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. We finally got here.
Absolutely, and I'm already looking forward to the part 2. Let's manifest that as well while we're sitting here.
Let's go. Thank you for being part of the club. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to get in touch, please refer to the information in the show notes. If you'd like to support this podcast, please consider leaving us a review or subscribing on whichever platforms you use to listen or watch the podcast. The Conscious Combat Club acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands in which we work, live and play. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. We'd like to say thank you to Nari for the beautiful song Shape Me, heard at the beginning and end of every episode. If you'd like to connect with Nari, you can find her on Instagram at Nari the Saga.
But me. Don't gotta tell you what my name is, I don't gotta explain it. Walk in the room, hear a boom erupting like I'm famous. I'm here shedding shells, I'm shameless. I fear nothing, no complacence. Walk too many tight ropes with no hope, so I became this poster they hold over all the heads of trauma holders. You don't need to know my history, I move boulders. Atlas shrug, cause I lifted the weight up off his shoulders. No pretense of defense, move first like chess soldiers. This goes deeper than empowerment, cause I'm the one that power it. Physical meets mental, challenge me to keep devouring. If I can't change the scenery, at least I change perspectives. No longer isolated, but elevated and selective. Darkest places become beautiful spaces. This is where rage meets patience, meets power meets gracious. Meets, we're so glad you came and the feeling is contagious. When you the walking impact of intended bad intentions. When you the manifesting of collecting all they tensions. You the soul and body hold it all and still remember. But I'm a work in progress, testament to all contenders. Forgot what it was like to have control over self. Forgot what it was like to be the one in charge. Forgot in my reflection I could see all my wealth. Forgot that with my bare hands I break all these bars, barriers and obstacles. They can't cage me, they can't chronicle all my experiences and reduce them to appearances. When I was truly beaten, gave myself clearances to fall down, mess up, and get myself back up. I'm not looking for clovers cause I don't believe in luck. Damn, you a badass, I heard them say it clearly. Why thank you very much, I know now I'm not weary of what's next for me. Cause I expect to see growth like I was planted, watered, fed, and bloomed to be. The positivity and accountability, knowing they won't step if I'm the agent of my agency. I think I found my voice again, huh? I think I found my voice again, huh? I'm not sorry, you're the end where I begin. Boundaries, I know them well. Take a breath and meditate. Who is she? I know her well. Now I get to open gates. 1, 2, 1, 2. I don't need your permission. And if you get uncomfortable, then use your intuition to know that I won't stay where respect is ever missing. And everything I do, that's me making decisions. It's truly underrated, the value of self-worth. Forgot that I was rich from the moment of my birth. A penny for my thoughts, no really, you can't afford it. You cannot buy my story, rewrite it, or record it. You cannot buy my story, rewrite it, or record it, huh?